I was disappointed. Everyone in that family is just like a psychopath. There's like so many descriptions of big body parts that I don't really care about. Yes, chef. Hi everyone, welcome back to This Book Belongs to Pam. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of December. Yes, I am somewhat late. It is now February and I'm only wrapping up December. First things first, as usual, let's look at the stats for December 2023. In total, I read 15 books and that is 4,970 pages and 0 audiobook hours. So no, I did not listen to any audiobook for the month of December. For the kinds of books that I was reading, I was in a very lighthearted, funny, and emotional mood. So I guess this perfectly contrasts the moods that I had in my November reads. In terms of how I was reading day after day, I think I did a pretty good job, except for this like lull towards the third week of December. My highest reading day is December 25. I read a total of 621 pages on this day. Just 621 in one day. That is like a record for me, I feel like. For ratings, I think I did pretty good this month. With the 15 books that I read, the average rating is 3.62 stars. And I did have 2 5-star reads. There is the stats that I have for the month of December. Now let's move on to the books that I read for December. I started the month with The Christmas Murder Game by Alexandra Benedict. This is not your typical Christmas read because it's not like a holiday romance, fluffy kind of read. It's actually a mystery thriller, kind of a murder mystery type of game. We have this family, they have this tradition of going into this house every single Christmas season. And in this house, they are usually presented with some sort of like a scavenger hunt kind of thing. So they have clues, they get to find a gift. Whoever finds the solution to the clue first gets like this special tiny gift. Sometimes it's chocolate, sometimes it's a toy or whatever. But now that they're older and the person who owns the house, which is their grandmother, I believe, passes away, she actually made the game a lot bigger, with the prize being the deed to the house that they're staying in. So some of them, family members, want the house, some of them don't want it, but overall, they were just stuck into this house and they have to play this scavenger hunt that their dead grandmother, I want to say, prepared for them in their will. The curious thing is that aside from the clues, people start dying. Yes, people, as in their relatives and friends, start dying inside the house. The problem though is that they couldn't really ask for help. They couldn't call the ambulance, they couldn't call the cops because they were snowed in. So they were just there with these dead bodies trying to figure out one who is a murderer, because those dead bodies, they didn't just die out of accidents. At first it seemed like it was an accident, but they quickly realized that there is a murderer amidst their ranks. So someone in the family is murdering everyone. So that is kind of like the thrilling aspect. We're trying to figure out, one, trying to answer the clues, and two, trying to figure out who is the killer inside the house. I rated this book 2.25 stars. So no, I did not start the month with a bang. This was like one of my lowest rated reads. Just because I do love the premise. I love myself a good murder mystery. It reminded me a bit of Knives Out. But it was just ridiculous. For one, the clues themselves, I don't find the clues good, because it's not the kind of clue where you have to like parse something from. Some of it is like you have to parse something from like the poem. The clues are given in poems or like in verses, and it's not like, it isn't logical.
Put this word together, and then for some reason this other word, put them together, they make something. But why would you put those two words together? Why? Like what prompted you to do that? It seems like the main character just, let me put those two words together. Like why? Why would you put those two words together? What's the...
Second, it's just so stupid. It's so stupid how people are just dying and then they're just like, I don't know, dragging their bodies to like a random walk-in freezing greenhouse thing, or like the ice where they keep their eyes. yes, okay, fine. They're stuck in there. They couldn't call anyone. But really, they're just gonna move on with their day. Like, they're gonna have breakfast at this time, lunch at this time. They have this, like, fancy spread of food, course meals. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's weird. Everyone in that family is just like a psychopath or something. It's just weird. And it's not that well written, in my opinion. I didn't really feel connected to any of the characters. I didn't feel like I was rooting for anyone. I just wanted it to be over. So that was a bad start to the month, but it was fun. The concept was fun. It's just the execution is just, it was bad. So that is The Christmas Murder Game by Alexandra Benedict. Now, the next book that I read, I actually started this in November, but I didn't really get too far into it, and that is Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montel. Now, I have been wanting to read this book for a long time. I think it was in my 2022 wish list where I said that I wanted to have a copy of this book so I can read it physically, but I just caved and I just read it from the library because it was available, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave this 4 stars. It was really well researched. The way that Amanda Montel shares information, it's not very scientific soundings. It feels very approachable. It was so easy to digest. It was so easy to understand her thought process, how she came to certain conclusions, and what are like different resources that she had, references that she had. It was just overall a book where I learned so much. Like, I have always been intrigued by the concept of cults, just the concept of people following blindly this one ideology, one leader, or something like that. And I've always wondered how cults start or happen, and the way that she connected language with cults is I found a very compelling hypothesis. But she introduced this concept of thought terminating cliches, basically like just a phrase or a sentence or an expression that we say that prevents further discussion. Like, it stops the discussion right then and there. Things like, it is what it is, boys will be boys. Yeah, it makes sense. Like, whenever someone says those, like, what do you say to that? Like, boys will be boys. Like, that person has already like closed off the discussion because she made this declaration that I believe that this behavior is expected because boys will be boys. I found that discussion quite interesting, and I can't wait to read more from this author. I know that you wrote Word Slut, which is a way for women to reclaim the words that are used to shame women or to make women feel inferior, and I'm super curious about that. I highly recommend it. So that is Cultish by Amanda Montel. The next 2 books that I read, I was starting my holiday romance vlog. I actually never posted this vlog because I got sick, but I did attempt to vlog reading these 2 holiday romances that I'm going to talk about next. First one is In the Holidays by Christina Lauren. This is my first book by Christina Lauren. I know she's a very popular author, but I was just curious about this one because whenever I do research on holiday books, holiday romances, this one is always somewhere at the top of the list, and everyone just keeps recommending it. So I thought, why not? It seems interesting. It has this time loop situation going on, and I found it quite fun. It was very entertaining. I did like feel for the main character a lot. I love how the main character was developed. Christina Lauren did such a great job in sharing with us her insecurities, her motivations, her thought process, why she do certain things, why she say certain things. So I feel like I came out of this book with such a big understanding and empathy for our main character. With the romantic interest, not so much though. Like, I feel like the romantic interest was just this weird standee of like perfect qualities of a person that just doesn't move. Like, there was nothing in that. I don't know, it just felt very flat, very empty, very hallmarky. The whole book is very hallmark, let's not kid ourselves, but the romantic interest even more so. Like, he felt like just this very bland character that was just there for our main character to develop around him and over him and whatever, right? I realized that I didn't really tell you what In the Holidays was all about. So very quickly, we are also following this group of family friends, and they go into this cottage every single Christmas season. So this is like a tradition with their family. However, this one time that they go to the cottage, things are just starting to fall apart a little bit, and the family that owns the cottage has decided to unfortunately sell the cottage, which kind of means like it's gonna be an end to their tradition, and our main character is really sad about it. So after the whole family gathering, they all went home in their own ways, but she and her family actually gets into a car accident, and then when she wakes up, she's back in the airplane going to the cottage. So she's kind of like transported back in time to when they were just arriving at the cottage. And then she quickly realizes that she has a chance to do over things. And then something happens and then time goes back again. So it's a loop. It's a loopy story, and it was really fun. So yeah, that is In Holidays. Back to my review. Other than that, it was really enjoyable. I found that I like how, I guess this is kind of like magical realism, right? I like how it was incorporated, and I want to read more time loop, time travel. So yeah, In Holidays, I gave this 3.75 stars. The next book that I read is a holiday romance book that I have been wanting to read for a very long time. A Merry Little Meet Cute by Shara Simone and Julie Murphy. Now, if you are here last year in my channel, you know that I read Priest and Sinner by Shara Simone. She's an erotica writer. Priest and Sinner are intense. I really loved Priest. I found that there were like very nuanced discussions on religion and faith in it, aside from the very sacrilegious sex that's going on. So I'm curious how she's going to manage with a contemporary romance. Although I do know that the main character in this book is actually a I forget the name of the platform here, but it's kind of like an OnlyFans star. So she sells like nude photos and things like that on the internet via this paywalled social media. We are following B and Nolan. B is an actress, up-and-coming actress, but on the side, she's also known as Bianca Von Honey, who is I guess an adult content creator. And then Nolan is this kind of like has-been. He used to be in a very popular boy band, but they have since disbanded, and since then, he has not really been able to shake off that boy band, bad boy image that he had. He was involved in a couple of scandals with some pretty prominent athletes, and that kind of, I guess, ruined his career a bit, ruined his reputation. So B and Nolan meet each other in the set of this film that is happening in a very holiday Christmas town. So this is gonna be like pretty much like a Hallmark holiday movie, right? And the main characters that are cast is gonna be Nolan and B, because B is gonna be subbing for a different actress who couldn't make it. And they're kind of like an unlikely main characters here, because you have Nolan, who is this very bad boy kind of guy, and he needs to present a very squeaky clean image for this Hallmark channel. It's a Hallmark, but you get the just like very family channel. Whereas with B, she has to keep this adult content creator persona under wraps, because obviously a channel that is very family focused, family friendly, is not gonna like their lead actress to be an adult film content creator, right? So that is kind of like their dilemma. They meet on set, and obviously they had a little meet cute, and things progress from there. So for this book, I really had a lot of fun with it. I gave this one 3.75 stars. It's not like groundbreaking or anything, but I do like how B, who is a chubby actress in this very judgmental industry, is very confident of herself. Like, I know that the fact that she's an adult content creator can be misconstrued as she's overcompensating. Like, the only way that she can be confident in her body is to like bear it all. I don't think that's the case. I feel like with the way that she was presented in the book and the way that she speaks, she's truly has come a long way and has really embraced her body, and it shows in her confidence, and I really like that. As someone who's also curvier, I found myself very, I guess, seen and heard with this book, which is good. Everything else is kind of like your typical thing. I like that there isn't a lot of the whole misunderstanding stuff. There is a little bit, but it wasn't like the main thing. The things that they were worried about, the things that they had in their minds that caused there is a third act breakup, it made sense for who they were and what they were trying to accomplish. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was quite fun. It fit the vibe, fit the mood, and I'm happy that I read it. So that is A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sarah Simone. Okay, so I actually broke up my reading holiday romances streak by reading this big chunker of a book that just came into hold. I feel like I was just over the whole holiday thing. I don't think I could read more than two in succession, so I wanted to break it apart with something else, like a different genre, and this came at the perfect time. It's Iron Flame by Rebecca Yara. So yes, I did read Iron Flame in December, and along with everyone else, I was disappointed. I gave this 2.25 stars. What is this about? This is the second book in the Empyrean series, first being Fourth Wing, which is immensely popular. I enjoyed Fourth Wing quite a bit, quite a lot actually, but this one disappointed me a lot. I think this book could have used quite a bit of editing. I feel like there was a lot that was crammed in there for effect, for shock value, for fan service, and it didn't feel as immersive, as well thought out as the first book. Not that the first book was perfect, but I thought the first book was very immersive. It was easy to get lost into the first book. With this one, I was so conscious of the fact that I'm just reading a book, and that usually means that I'm not really immersed in the story, which is sad. This one is also super long. It was 884 pages. It's so long, and I feel like it was too long. It had no business being 800 plus pages. I know that this is gonna be a very long series, so I thought it would have been better to like cut apart this book and just expand on this few specific things that are happening and just make it make sense rather than just like hitting you with plot twist after new information. I feel like it needed a little bit more build up in order for it to really have the impact that it probably wanted to have. So yeah, that is my review of Iron Flame. I will still be continuing the series just because I already started it. I want to know how it ends. That's just how they get you, right? But I am very disappointed by the second book, Iron Flame. Now that I got the fantasy book out of the way, I wanted to go back to something lighter, aka something romance. So I got a hold of Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood, and I am more surprised than anyone else that I am giving this one 5 stars. Yes, my first 5 star for the month of December is Check and Mate, which is a YA romance, which is why I'm so surprised. We are following Mallory, who is this kind of like a chess prodigy, but she kind of stopped playing and she kind of hates chess now, so she's just going through life begrudgingly, finding just odd jobs here and there to keep the lights on. She works like as a mechanic, she just gets paid shit, and she's just having a rough time. On the other hand, we are also following Nolan. He's also called Nolan? He is! So in A Merry Little Meet Cute, the guy's name is Nolan, and then in Check and Mate, it's also Nolan. What are the odds that I'm reading two Nolans? Is Nolan a very common name in the US? We are following another Nolan, and this guy is at the top of his game. He is like the number one ranked chess player in the world. Like, he is the one to beat. He's also very famous for being quite aloof. Like, he hates interviews. He kind of has a temper. Sometimes he would throw things when he gets mad at chess. He just has a reputation, and it's not a good one. Nolan and Mallory meet each other at this chess tournament, a local small tournament that Mallory got roped into playing because her best friend just needed another player to complete the roster to be able to play, so she reluctantly played because she wanted to win that cash prize. Nolan was just there probably as like a charity kind of thing, so they were paired together in the first round of the game, and lo and behold, our girl Mallory defeats the number one chess player in the whole wild world. She did that. So she kind of just gets surprised. She gets stunned, so she just gets up and leaves. But obviously not before becoming this viral sensation of a girl who, like, out of nowhere, she's not ranked. Nobody knows her. Out of nowhere, just beats the number one chess player in the world. So, there you have it. That is the premise of Check and Mate, and that's all you really need to know to get started. And I don't know why I really love this one. I feel like I enjoyed it because one, there was obviously no on page sex just because it is YA, and I really don't like Ali Hazelwood's smut scenes. I feel like they're over the top, they're ridiculous. There's like so many descriptions of big body parts that I don't really care about. This one is toned down quite a bit because it's YA, and it really just focused on emotions, focused on expressions of feelings, focused on language, focused on conversations, and I really like that. So yeah, I think maybe I'm just more into Ali Hazelwood's YA than her adult book. So I really enjoyed this one. That is Check and Mate, 5 stars. Who would have known? Who would have known? So after Check and Mate, I am still in the romance mood, and also I was still trying to film that holiday romance vlog. I read One Day in December by Josie Silver. Now, this book was not what I expected it to be. I thought actually that this book was kind of like a time loop thing as well. Like, I was thinking that she was gonna be repeating the same day in December because of the title. I don't know why, but that's just what I thought. But it wasn't that. This was just very... It didn't feel like a romance book, honestly. I really loved this one. I gave this 4 stars. Let me tell you what it's about. In One Day in December, we are following a main character as she is in a bus. She's kind of feeling very frantic. Things are not going her way in terms of her work, her personal life. Just things are just not good. While she was on the bus, as the bus was leaving, she looks out of the window and she sees a guy at a bus stop. They make eye contact, and then just something just happens inside of her, like a spark. Her butterflies in her stomach, just something happens, and she is convinced that it's love at literally first sight. Ever since that day, that one day in December, she has been trying to find this mystery guy. She has the image of his face burned into her mind. Whenever she goes to bars, she tries to look for this guy. Whenever she goes into bus stops or when she's riding a bus, she's trying to look for this guy. She tried the same route as before, same time as before, and she's just trying to find this guy, but he is never to be seen. Until one day, her best friend knocks at her front door to introduce her boyfriend, who she's very much in love with. She has been raving about this guy for a long time. This meet up is like a long time coming. And when she opens the door, the guy is none other than that guy, the bus stop guy. And she is in a pickle. So there is the beginning of our story. And it goes on for so many years. It wasn't just this very like vapid story. I would have hated this book if it went to like this whole catfight thing about them trying to win the guy's affection or them fighting because they like the same guy. It wasn't that. It was so much more than it. It was a story about friendship, about found family, about relationship with yourself, about, insecurities, about like the timing of things. I really loved this book, and I think it was well-rounded. I guess the only reason that I'm not giving it a 5-star is because it did feel like it dragged on quite a bit in the middle. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed it, and I am very intrigued by other books by this author, Josie Silver. And yeah, that is One Day in December. I highly recommend it. It made me cry, by the way. It made me cry quite a bit because I was just like, I just wanted things to work out for them, but it never does. One Day in December, Josie Silver. Now, after that, I was still in the Christmas romance thing, probably because One Day in December wasn't really very holiday-ish. It was, the first scene was set during the Christmas season, but it wasn't as a whole about holidays. So I went ahead and read Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. Now, I actually was never interested in this book. Like, the covers doesn't really do it for me. I don't really like them. I was never interested in it. And I don't know why I read it. I think it was just because I was reading Christmas books and this was one of the highly recommended ones and it was available in my library, so I read it. And I gave this one also 4 stars. It's more of like a generous 4 stars. I do quite enjoy the whole simple plot of it, the whole childhood friends to lovers situation. It has fake dating, but not really. It's not the kind of fake dating where they're really trying to convince other people that they're dating, because this one, it feels like everyone's just expected them to be together, so it wasn't really hard to convince them. It's more of like a childhood friends to, like, they don't really know what their feelings are for each other, and then they do, kind of thing. The story, the plot itself, I don't really want to say much because it's just a very hallmarky, simple plot that I feel like if I say anything, it's gonna kind of like spoil the book. So just go into it thinking that you are following this girl who owns this Christmas tree farm, and she has been having problems. So she decided to join this contest run by a very famous TikTok personality in order to win this cash prize. But in that form where she has to like apply, she mentioned that she owns the farm with her longtime partner. She does not have a longtime partner. She does have a guy best friend too, so they kind of have to fake it for this TikTok lady to believe them and hopefully get the cash prize. Take it for what it is. It's a Hallmark kind of book, and it's just very lighthearted. It's not that serious. It's fun to read during the holiday season, but other than that, it's okay. It's a good book if you read it at the right time. So yeah, that is Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. And then, this is the first book that I'm reading that I actually have a physical copy of, which is Smaller and Smaller Circles by F.H. Batacan. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I was on a 4-star streak for this series of books. But I gave this one 4 stars. What is this book about? I'm kind of sure that you probably haven't heard of it because this book is actually written by a Filipino author, also published locally. This is widely regarded as the first Filipino crime novel, which is wild to me. This was published when? I think it was published 2016. So our first Filipino crime novel was published in 2016. Isn't that wild? That's just so crazy. I feel like there's so much that can be done in this genre with the context of the Philippines, and we need more writers to write this. So I want to highlight this one. So with Smaller and Smaller Circles, we are following 2 Jesuit priests as they try and assist the police force in solving this gruesome crime perpetrated by a purported serial killer. This book kind of like investigates the serial killer, which is like shocking the nation because, oh my gosh, why do we have a serial killer? And other than that, the way that he commits his crime is very gruesome. Like what he does is like he peels the face, like literally peels the face. He cuts off like genitalia, and it's very gruesome, and he does it to little boys, which is disturbing, to say the least. 2 Jesuit priests are being asked to help in this investigation. If you're wondering, why priests? Why are you asking priests about this thing? It probably requires a bit more context if you're reading this, but I actually come from a Jesuit university, so I do have my fair share of experiences with Jesuit priests. And my understanding of the Jesuit order of Catholicism is that they value knowledge very, very highly, which is why a lot, if not all, of Jesuit priests have some sort of like degree in the sciences. Like my teachers in the university, they had like masters and doctorate in some obscure type of mathematics. One of them is like an expert in biology. One of them is like a physicist. They have very high levels of education in the sciences. That is something that I've seen time and time again with all of the Jesuit priests. And same with this book, the Jesuit priest here, one of them is pretty much like a forensic biologist. Is that what he's called? Basically, he's into forensics. So he does autopsies and stuff. And then the other one is essentially like a psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist. So they have been asked to help out with this investigation because they kind of offer like a unique perspective into the investigation, because in the Philippines, we don't have a very robust forensics like department. It's not like in the Western countries where that is kind of like the norm. In the Philippines, we don't really have that. We don't have resources for it. We don't have funding for it. So that is why when we say we don't have serial killers, we say that with an asterisk because we don't really know. We don't have the data to back that up. I really enjoyed this book, but I feel like my enjoyment is also like amplified by the fact that this Jesuit priests are stationed at a school, which, you guess it, is the same school that I went to. So it's not explicitly mentioned, but there's only one Jesuit university where I live, and there's also only one that's along this specific street that is mentioned in this book. So it's kind of like a given. I was just reading this book. I don't know where. Like I tapped it a bit. I was reading it, and I'm like, huh. The places that they're describing, it's very familiar. Like this university that they're describing, because they were saying like, the priest was walking towards a certain building, and then if you turn left, that will take you to the Jesuit priest residences. And I'm like, that's also the same way if you want to go to the Jesuit residences in my university. And then, lo and behold, I got the confirmation because it mentioned the street of where my university is, and that is the only university there is in the Philippines that's run by Jesuit priests. So there's that. And also, there's a film adaptation of this, and they filmed it in my school. So that should have been my biggest clue. In terms of the actual story of it, I did find it quite thrilling. I was really on the edge of my seat. I loved all of the commentary about the Catholic institution and the people that benefit from it, and how Catholic institution basically manage I guess misconducts by their priests and the people of the clergy, and how that is very realistic and what happens in real life, not just in the Philippines. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. The only thing I didn't quite like was the end part. For some reason I wasn't like super satisfied by the ending. I felt like the payoff wasn't that good, but leading up to it, everything was really like gripping and really thrilling, and the social commentary was on point. So yeah, I still do recommend Smaller and Smaller Circles. Even if like you don't live in the Philippines and you don't know much about this, I feel like this is a good book to read if you're looking for like a crime novel set in the Philippines. Yeah, Smaller and Smaller Circles by F.H. Batapan. The next book that I read is actually a book that I pre-ordered via Kindle, and this was just something that I saw on a whim on Instagram. Somebody was sharing it, and I was like, oh, that seems like a really interesting book. And it is Knives, Seasoning, and a Dash of Love by Katrina Kwan. Now, this is a contemporary romance book, and unfortunately, I gave this one 2.5 stars. It wasn't the worst that I've read this one, but it wasn't really that good either. In this book, we are following Eden, who is an up-and-coming chef. She's very talented, but basically things happened in her life and she wasn't able to pursue her craft in cooking the way that she wanted to, but she really wanted to apply to this specific restaurant. So she kind of faked her way into it, like made up like exaggerated things in her resume in order to get an interview with this illustrious, prodigious chef named Alex Chen. Now, Alex is this very, like, he's kind of like the whole aloof, quiet, brooding, like kind of mean, but also very attractive head chef of this very, very famous restaurant, fine dining restaurant. And he was the one that was basically interviewing Eden. He essentially hires her on the spot. We find out a couple of things about them that link them both. The reason why I pre-ordered this was because in one of the marketing materials, they used Yes Chef. I am like a sucker for the bear right now. Like, I'm always on the lookout for this like stories with like kitchen nightmares, toxic kitchen chef relationships. I don't know why. I just find it fascinating, and I really like that high pressure environment and the things that come out of it. So that is why I am so obsessed with the bear. I'm the type of person who loved Hell's Kitchen, Kitchen Nightmares, Gordon Ramsay, and all of those things. So I was having fun with the bear, and I thought, oh my gosh, this book is gonna give me like the bear vibes, but make it a romance, right? It kind of did, but it also was just very basic. Like, it was just, I don't know, I didn't feel for any of the characters. I didn't have a good mental picture of the characters because I felt like they weren't described as well as I wanted them to be. They weren't like built up, they weren't developed as well as I hoped they would be. Even though there's like literally character art in the front page, like I could not in my head picture them Like, I could not reconcile the character art in the cover with the words that were on the page, which like signals to me that the writing isn't really as like the writing isn't doing a good job at creating the visuals, which I personally prefer whenever I'm reading. I prefer like having a very like visual experience whenever I'm reading a book. So I didn't get it with this one. I also found that the whole plot, it was cute. It wasn't that bad really, but it just wasn't, I guess maybe I just had too high of an expectation, because I really wanted to love the book because I love the setting of the book, and it just fell flat. That is what ultimately made me rank it a bit lower. So there is that. But if you're just looking for a very quick read, I read this in one sitting, I believe. Check it out. Maybe you would enjoy it. It's very like basic, but not really in a bad way. It's just like if you want like a very simple romance in this setting, then this would scratch the itch. That is Knives Seasoning in a Dash of Love by Katrina Kwan. So for the next couple of books, these are actually manga. I didn't read this back to back to back, but I just want to talk about it in one chunk. And that is Spy X Family. So I read volumes 7, 8, and 9 during the month of December. So I think I'm almost caught up with this series. And yeah, what do I say about this series? Not much really. I don't really like have a anything to say with the series. I just read this mostly as like a palate cleanser, just to get in some cute stories, cute situations. In volume 7, I really love the chapter where Bond, the dog of Anya and the family, he was like, because this dog is, he can kind of like see a little bit in the future, like what's gonna happen in the future. And basically he saw something in the future, that he was gonna die because of something. And he was trying so hard to change the future, and eventually things just went to shit. And I don't know, that was just so funny. I love being in the perspective of the dog. I feel like that's always my favorite chapters whenever Bond is like the main character. I just love Bond. So more chapters with Bond, please, please. But yeah, that was just Spy X Family. It's like fun. I gave this 3.25 for volume 7, 3.75 for volume 8, and 3.0 for volume 9. Honestly, I couldn't tell you why I gave those ratings. It's probably just has to do with my emotions at that time. But overall, the series as a whole, it's okay, it's cute, it's lighthearted, it's fun. So yeah, Spy X Family by Tatsuya Endo. After that, I actually read a graphic novel, which is quite rare for me. I read Sheets by Brenna Thumbler. This is a very interesting novel. We are following this girl whose family owns a laundromat. But times are hard. The business is not doing so hot. And this sleazy guy has been going into the store trying to essentially buy it off of her, because the guy wants to build some kind of like spa treatment, like immersive relaxation center kind of thing. So he's been trying to essentially buy her out so that he can build the spa in her, like where the laundromat is. But this laundromat has been, a business built by her mom, who has passed away. So she doesn't really want to sell it. It means a lot to her, but times are hard. Business is not doing well. People are treating her like shit because she probably lives in like a very rich neighborhood, and people are just treating her like, oh, she's just a laundromat or something like that. Alongside that, there is this magical realism aspect to it, because we have ghosts in the picture. So apparently there's this ghost association thing where essentially they manage the ghosts who have not like passed over yet. Either the ghosts have things they still wanted to do, or regrets, or whatever. Essentially the ghosts are still in the physical realm, if you will, and in order to stay in the physical realm, they have to attach their, I guess, soul ghostliness into an object, which for them is the sheet. So there's just this ghost of like a sheet, white blanket with like holes for eyes, like the typical ghost. And that's just who they are. And we kind of follow this unlikely story between this girl who owns a laundromat and the ghost. Story was so cute. I gave it 3.75 stars. And I think this is part of like a bigger series, so I am gonna pick it up at some point. But yeah, I just found it super cute. The concept is very interesting. The art style is not exactly my favorite, but I still found it quite nice to look at. So yeah, that is Sheets by Brenda Thunner. The final book that I read for 2023, I really went out with a bang. I really said to myself that I wanted the last book to be a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time. I want it to be a book that is on my TBR, just not like some random book that I get from the library, right? I want it to be a book that I was really trying to read. And I have had this book in my currently reading on my Storygraph for, at the time, a year. Like literally, I started this book December of 2022 and I have not finished it. And that is none other than The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So I started reading this book December 7, 2022. December 7, 2022. That was more than a year ago at that point, because I picked this up again on December 27, 2023. So I just had like 4 days left in the year and I thought, I want to finish The Secret History. I want to get that feeling of finishing a big chunky book that I've been wanting to read for a long time. And it all worked out because I was like 40% in The Secret History. So I thought, I could do this. I could read this, right? And oh my gosh, I gave this 5 stars. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I put it off for so long. This book was so good. I finished it with 1 day to spare. I finished it on the 30th of December. So prior to picking it up on December 27th, the last time that I actually read this book was in February of last year. So it's been a while, but for some reason, every single thing that happened in the first 40% of the book was like ingrained into my mind. Like I did not forget a single detail. I think it was that like impactful for me, and I guess it also helped that I had tabbed it as well. And I know the hype. I get the hype now. I get it. Now, Donna Tartt's writing style is, she is an acquired taste. She can feel very clinical, but honestly, I feel like there was no other way you should have written The Secret History. This was the perfect way to write it because it was pretentious. It was purposely trying to be like highfalutin. It was purposely trying to be this elite kind of writing style, and that is just like a nod to the satire that was within the pages of this book. And I just found that so incredibly compelling. The characters are very well developed. They're not likable at all. Every single one of them, not likable. But then at the same time, you can kind of see where they're coming from, and that makes it easier to step into their shoes and see what they're seeing. I also really like that we are reading this book from the perspective of Richard, who is this guy who moves from like California to the East Coast, to Vermont, to this very like elite prestigious school and started studying the classics. Because I feel like we went through the whole experience that he had, which is, first, he was very enchanted by this whole concept. He was very enamored by this group of people like Bunny and Henry and everyone. He was like enamored by them because they look so otherworldly. They look like they came from a different era altogether, and they look very put together. Like they're so knowledgeable, they're so intelligent, they know what they're doing. The way that they present themselves, like they're above everyone else, and he was very enamored by that, and he wanted that for himself. So he did it. He weaseled his way in. He managed to like fit in with this crowd, and he really went through the motions of really embodying, embracing this lifestyle. And then by the end of it, he was just like disillusioned. He just realized how stupid everything was. He realized how pretentious it all was. And I found that whole roller coaster of emotions that we went through with him was just a perfect way of seeing this book. I like that the way that he describes his people, the way that he describes different scenes, different things that happen in the book was colored by how, one, at the beginning, how rose-tinted his view was, and then towards the end, how jaded he was by everything. I really love that part. And also, it's very funny. I mean, there's a lot of, like, offensive things here, but I don't think it was written for the purposes of offending the reader. I guess it just showed like at the time that this was written, like what was the climate like in terms of this social issues and in terms of how people with privilege think and how they navigate through this whole thing. And I really loved it. I think this is the kind of book that I would reread, which is kind of like surprising because it took me a while to read it, right? But once I started reading this again, I was just flying through the pages. I remember the first 40% I was also flying through the pages. So I think I just needed to be in the right mindset and have the right like time and space and really sink my teeth into this book. And it was just so good. It was 5 stars. I'm so happy that I ended the year with such an amazing book, and like having a 5-star end to the year is just, it just feels good. So yeah, that was the last book that I read for December and obviously for the year of 2023. Okay, before the light completely disappears on us, it's so dark right now. I'm so sorry. I talked too much, but yeah, thank you everyone for hanging out with me today and letting me talk about books that I love and didn't love in the month of December. This is the final wrap up for last year. Well, I'm still gonna be doing like a best books of 2023 kind of video, but this is the final monthly wrap up for the year of 2023. I'm so happy that I was able to film wrap ups for every single book that I read, and it would be nice to look back at the books that I read throughout the years and see what my thoughts are. And yeah, I hope everyone had a pretty good reading year, and I hope everyone will have an amazing reading year in 2024. And I will see you in the next video. Bye! Sorry if I was misleading. It's not the